All right, this is step 2 to our Trigify Clay SuperSend workflow. So, as a reminder, what we're doing here is we're monitoring specific people's posts, we're finding the people that engage, and then now we're going to go into the research phase on these particular, I don't want to call them prospects because we don't know if they're prospects yet. So far, what we know is they're people that have engaged with a post that a person that we're following has posted, right? And so as we think about really big list, we want to make it really small. That's at least my goal. You can go any direction you want on this, but this is just how I would set this up and how I have it running currently. So as a reminder here, we set up so when we came into SuperSend, what we want to do is we want to like open a workbook, right? So we'll come back to this table here in a second. Actually, let me just open up a new table so you know how to work this. So when I come into Clay, you may have nothing here. It might be blank, but I've got like a bunch of tables. But what you want to do is set up a new workbook. And when we come in here, we'll go over here to new. We'll click on workbook. And you can start a workbook from many different ways, like maybe just finding people, finding companies. But what we're going to do is we want to monitor a webhook. So if I click on more sources here, and you'll see here, monitor webhook, this is what we're going to generate in Clay to make sure we're able to get the data from Trigify. So we'll do monitor webhook. It's going to create a table. This table will be very blank. There will be no columns, and that's totally fine. But what will happen is here, you can come down to, so click on webhook. You can click here too, but if you open up the drop down, you'll see sources, and you'll want to do pull in data from webhook. So now you're going to have this webhook here. And when you copy this, when you come back to Trigify, this is where you'd come into. So again, I've got my influencers that I'm following here. I would then come into the integrations tab. I would manage the integration here and looking for profile engagement connections. And so for example, if like this one here, there's nothing connected, but for example, if I wanted those people or prospects to come into that table, I would click, I would just open up that particular influencer here. You'll have the webhook section open. I went over this a little bit in the last video, but we're going to come here for add endpoint. And then we're just going to paste that webhook that we got from Clay into here. And then we'll hit create. And now anytime you do, right? So like we'll look at here. So like if I come to this, the Clay guy, if I come to this, now that this is connected, if I come to this influencer here, and whoops, I want to open that list, right? So you'll notice here, this is going to generate a list of, looks like 891 leads. And if I wanted to export, let's say, all of these or many, whatever, I'll just do one. I'd come up here and go save to. I'd export to Clay. You'll see it do its stuff here. And then what you'll also see is I'll refresh this. It'll start to show you, I think, yeah, so see here, now there's like that Clay little logo right there. That tells you that you've already put this, contact in Clay at least once. You could send this to like multiple tables or whatever you want, but like this is an indicator that you've already saved this contact to Clay. And then if I come back over to that table we just we just created, you'll see now you've got a piece of data here. And in this table, you'll see we've got that same flow here. We got all these webhooks and we've got a bunch of data here. And so, essentially this is where you'd want to start filling this out, right? So just basically I can kind of start this table, but I'll want to go into the old table the current table that I have. But like you could open this webhook and you click in the cell and then this will pop up over here and it'll have like, whatever is included. So from a prospect perspective, I now have like all of this data. Just opening this up, just kind of opening all of these so you can kind of see. So we've got company name, we've got the company size, we've got the LinkedIn domain or LinkedIn URL of the company, which is here. We've got the person's job title. We've got their first and last name. We've got their LinkedIn URL. We've got the LinkedIn username. This right here, the LinkedIn username is actually the username of the person that posted. So the guy we're following, that influencer, which is important for some of the prompts we're going to set up. And then you have like LinkedIn engagement, which is important too. We're going to use this in some of the prompts. This person liked the post. This is the text of the LinkedIn post. And so what you can do is as you start to build this table, you might go, okay, I want the guy's first name. So I would just add this as a column. And I want his last name. I'd add that as a column. I want his job title. Add that as a column. What else do I want? Company name. Maybe I want their industry, right? And so now you can kind of take data out of this webhook and start to build your column so you can visually see the data. Now, one point here is you don't need to make the data visible in these columns to use these data points. Like you'll see when we start prompting, all the data that is in this webhook is active and usable anywhere. I just like to visualize kind of like things that I'm using. So that's just one thing that I do there. So you can see here, I've like connected the webhook. I have data coming into Clay. You can automate this. You can have that auto push from Trigify every single day or whatever your cadence is. And so essentially once you build these tables, you theoretically could have a machine that's just running all the time. So that's really cool. You really get a good automated flow. Okay, so let's go back to our table here. So remember, this table looks like it has a bunch of stuff in it, but the only difference between this table and that other table is I've already just done all the work in this table. And so from the webhook, I have added columns. This should be purple. This is coming from, I just marked things that in purple that are like the same, right? So like all these columns in purple that I made, these are all data points that are coming from Trigify. It just helps me map it out of my brain. But you don't have to do that, obviously. So again, I've got all the stuff coming out of that Trigify webhook. First thing that I did here is I can normalize a company name. You don't have to do this. Like, I don't know, like it's up to you. It kind of just cleans up the name a little bit. Usually this matters when you have like companies that's like, business name, doing business as, this or that, and have like the Inc. and the LLC at the end. Like you can kind of just use this normalize to clean that up. But let's actually show you how you would do that. So I'm going to jump back to my table that's unfinished. And so just as an example, let's say this is our company name here. We could even just rename this like company name, right? And then here I could do, if I wanted to normalize the company name, which I think is important to do, if you're going to use it in your outreach, you'd want to do like an add enrichment, and you just kind of search like what you're looking for. Normalize, I kind of already searched it. You can see, oh, didn't like that. So normalize a domain, that's not what I want. Normalize a company name, which is right here. Yeah, this is what I want. And all Clay columns kind of work the same, right? Like you're like adding an enrichment, and then you need to like figure out what sources of information the column needs. So for example, this normalized company name column, it needs a company name, which is this column here. And so what I'm going to do here is grab this drop down, and you can do something like backslash and start typing. If sometimes that'll work, sometimes not, but then you can always just grab it and then see like, cool, this is the column that I want. So I want this column, this new column, to look at this column to do whatever it is it's going to do, right? So the output here, I'm going to just not put an output. I'm just going to hit save, don't run. One big caveat to Clay, as you're building tables and as you start new tables, the first thing that you should do is come down and turn this off. So this little like circle green arrow thing, click that and turn the table off. This is a cost saving measure that 100% you should do while you're building tables. It's so, for example, as I start to add different things, it's so the table just doesn't run automatically, because like things cost credits in Clay, and you don't want things to run like unintentionally, like while you're doing the build out. So for example, I added this column, but I didn't run anything, and nothing, didn't cost money. And I don't think this column costs anything anyway. I think it's free. But now I can just come and run it once. So I just click this little play button, and now this column is looking at this column and then normalizing the name. So, okay, it still gave us like corner.io. I could go deeper here from a prompt perspective and like get the .io off. Like that's obviously probably what we need to do. So, I would probably custom prompt if you need to get this. Like clearly this just like didn't work that great. But let's use this as an example. Like maybe I want to do this like a better way. So maybe I want to do like a custom AI prompt. I just want AI to do some magic here. So I'm doing a column and I'm doing AI. And whenever I talk about like prompting, this is what I mean. It's creating a column using AI and then starting to configure this side panel with the model that I'm going to use, the prompt that I want the model to follow. And then as we think about the output, I'll show you kind of different versions of an output, right? So this is pretty easy. I'm going to just write a really basic prompt, and I can even use their AI, or you could even just use like ChatGPT to like make a prompt. But like this one's really simple. I want you to look at \company name and normalize it so it only gives me the name and not anything weird like .com or .io, right? So, I mean, we need to like hone this in, but like maybe I'll just hit generate prompt here. Yep, we'll generate it. So all this is doing is like, this is just using like ChatGPT to like generate a prompt, right? So here, the prompt asks for normalized company name, suggested model. Actually, this is pretty cool. Like you see how it gives you the prompt that you want to do, and it actually gives you the output. Wow, that's actually really cool. This is new. So I'm going to accept the prompt. All right. So what it did was it actually recommended a model, which is very cool. I have my API keys for all of these different LLMs attached to Clay, so it saves me money. You don't have to do that. Clay also will let you use these based on credits. But I'm just going to actually change this. I like to use Gemini. So I'm going to change this to 2.0 Flash, and I've got my Gemini key there, right here. So Kurtis's Google Gemini key. We're going to use this prompt, and we're going to output on this column. So we'll go ahead and save this. Save, don't run. I always do save, don't run. It's like best way to get this going. So here's the difference. This was something that Clay gave us, kind of a basic level. Let's see what my AI prompt will do. Cool. So you see the difference in the output here? This still gave me corner.io, but because I prompted the AI to be a little smarter, it gave me corner, which is ultimately like what we would want to use in outreach. And so the other thing is too, is when you think about the outputs, you can always click on a cell and it will open up and show you more information. So for example, this is a really basic one, but like I used my Google Gemini key and this prompt cost me next to nothing, like very free, not really anything happening there, but a good first use case on how you might use prompting. And actually that generating prompt in Clay, that's actually fairly new, and you should 100%, like that was great. I'm usually jumping over into ChatGPT or Claude and like making my prompt and then pasting it in there. That was really cool. So I might do that going forward for this video. Okay, cool. So let's go back to our other table. So far, all I did was grab webhook data, visualize it in the columns. I have a normalized company name, and we actually just built a better version of that by just using an AI prompt. So I would probably change this column to that just to make it better. As I scan across the table, I'm still, again, everything in purple for me is coming out of that Trigify webhook. So this is just data that I'm just I'm just visualizing so far. And at the end of the purple here, I've now got all the data I want out of the webhook. I normalized the company name, and everything after this is going to be the building blocks of what we're going to use in SuperSend to generate that I don't want to say personalized, but like that relevant outreach, right? That relevant email, that relevant LinkedIn message, like whatever it is, like this is going to give us the building blocks. Okay. So again, each of these rows is also a person. This is one person that engaged with a LinkedIn post. So first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that this person doesn't work for a competitor to SuperSend. Like, I don't want to waste my outreach ammunition reaching out to somebody that works at a competitor. Makes sense, right? So let's see what we did here. This was what this started out as as I, again, just coming back, all I did was add enrichment, and then I did use AI. Oh, I'm sorry. Back up. I did add column, use AI, and then I'm doing the magic here in this side pane, right? So I'll delete that because I want you to come back and see this. So I'm going to edit this column and I'm going to open up that same side pane. So this is that same thing, but it's like fully filled out, right? So I'm using the web research Clagent. You have a couple different opportunities here or options here, but if you're going to do things like, search the web, right? Like go to a LinkedIn profile, like search a website, whatever it is, you got to use the Clagent so it knows to be like multimodal, right? I'm using my Gemini model. Gemini is like a really good workhorse large language model that can be used for almost anything. I actually use it like exclusively for this table, and it's insanely inexpensive in comparison to like Claude or GPT. So, just a personal preference. You choose your own adventure there. So down here, I've got a prompt. So this is a competitor prompt for SuperSend. You're an AI researcher kind of, and I'll give you these prompts will be in this table if, so you can see exactly what I've typed. Obviously you need to curate it for your business, but you'll see exactly the prompt that I used in every column and you'll have this as a template. So context, SuperSend's a multi-channel outbound platform used for automating cold outreach across email, LinkedIn, Twitter, right? So again, we've given the prompt very clear context of who SuperSend is. And then we've given it instructions. So like we want, using the inputs below. So how did I do this? So here, I want to point the AI to where on this table they can fetch this information. So company name, I would just go backslash, and then I did that normalized company, right, column. So that's how I'm getting that data. And then now I want to backslash and I want to get the URL, which is, it's in here somewhere. Company domain, right? So now the AI prompt knows to go to these two sources within the table. And then it's going to now evaluate if, based on all of these, things in the prompt, it's going to give me an output of a yes, this company is a competitor, or no, it's not, right? Again, the company the person works for, right? So that's my first competitor check to make sure I'm reaching out to the right people. And you can tell I've got some no's and some yeses. Big thing here is in the next column, you'll see that this column ran and got a yes, but you'll see every other cell is empty in this column. And it's because I've got conditional runs in each of these columns. So if I open this column, if I scroll down to the bottom, you can set up a condition that says only run if, and this is competitor check, right? And this looks hard to do, but if you just use AI here, and in normal language, you say, only run this column if backslash, right? So where should it look? If competitor check, right? So if I came and opened this competitor check, there's like a bunch of output data, but there's one that I'm looking for, which is competitor. That's giving me that yes, no. So only run this column if competitor equals no. And then when you hit generate formula, it's going to give you the right formula. So again, natural language up here using backslash to point to the column that you want to reference, using generating AI or using AI to generate the formula, which is giving you this output. And then you're cross-checking over here if it's correct. Side tip, little tip here. Sometimes you got to generate the formula once or twice to get your output right. So just a small tip there. I'll delete this because I don't want to edit this because this is giving me the right output. So again, generating a very similar prompt. In this column, what I'm doing is, now that I know that this person doesn't work for a competitor, now I want to actually look at the post that we're referencing here and make sure the post is relevant. Because like, if the post is, let's say the person, like the influencer we follow is like posting like Happy Mother's Day. All right, well, the people that engage with that post, like there's no signal that that I'm getting that because they liked a post from this guy that said Happy Mother's Day, like pretty irrelevant as far as I'm concerned. Like why, maybe I would want to reach out to these people, but I wouldn't have like, I wouldn't have something in common. I wouldn't have a thread to pull on. It would just be like a very cold outreach, right? So what we're doing is we're having AI, we're using a prompt to say, okay, go to the post content, right? This came from Trigify, that webhook. So this was data that I pulled in from Trigify. And read the post. Tell me, like, figure out what this post is about, okay? Then look at the engagement type. And again, engagement type is in the Trigify webhook. And tell me, did this person comment or did they like? Because a person that commented and a person that commented with a comment that's relevant to me is a far greater signal that they're interested in this topic versus somebody that liked. But liking is still like a weak signal. So do with it what you will, but like it's still some signal. Like they're clearly interested in a little bit in the topic, right? At least. I'm also going to have the AI go to the post URL. Like that's just another data point for it to go kind of check it out. And then I also want to reference who the person was that posted the content, because sometimes the AI agent can't make the determination of like, oh, it was this person that posted it and this was the person that commented. So you want to be very explicit, like, hey, the LinkedIn username, like this is the influencer. And that actually is part of our prompt of like evaluate the influencer's post, determine if it's relevant to SuperSend so that we can generate outreach to the person that liked or commented. And so we need to make that determination really clear. And again, this prompt will get you there. So LinkedIn post relevance score, we're going to look at these input variables. We're using backslash to put these items in here to reference the part of the table that it needs to look at. We're giving the, again, we're generating a role. And again, natural language, clicking generate my prompt will get you here. Like this is not rocket science. And you can also test it. Like you can test, as you're prompting, test it, look at the output, test it, look at the output to kind of dial it in. So we've got the role here. We've got the output format. Again, like, we want very specific things like the post is relevant, yes or no. The category, we want to get the category, like what is the category of the post, because that's going to determine some of our outreach, right? So again, you can read this prompt here. We're doing some about SuperSend stuff, like giving the AI lots and lots of information to go and generate our next sort of steps here. So I just want to show you an output of this prompt. And again, this prompt will be in the table. So here's an output. So the AI said that this LinkedIn post is in the category of automation. The reasoning that it gave, it says this post details an automated lead generation nurturing process, which directly relates to SuperSend's offering around automation and multi-channel outreach. The specific tactics mentioned, email nurturing, lead enrichment, provide a strong basis for outreach, right? So the AI thinks this post is relevant because it knows what SuperSend is, it knows what this post is, and it's making that sort of connection here. Its confidence that it's relevant is very high, which is good. It's pulling out 3 key points in this LinkedIn post. So for example, point number 1, website visitor identification and re-engagement. That's what this post is about. It's like identifying website visitors. Lead enrichment and qualification using Clay. Cool, that works for us. And another key point, it says automated email nurturing sequences for lead activation, right? So like, what was the text of this post? Under 2% of our inbound traffic was converting, right? We identify visitors and re-engage them with these platforms, right? So it's actually talking about the platforms and like what this person's doing. Like this is super relevant to SuperSend. Like we should talk to people that are reading this, right? Okay. Back to our output here. we got this is relevant true. So you can see here, like data here, I added as column to visualize some of the key things that matter. Like what I care about is like, one, is this LinkedIn post relevant? If that's true, awesome. I want to see that. And then I want the topic, because what I'm doing here is I'm using this is relevant true as a conditional run to then run this column. Because if the LinkedIn post is not relevant, I don't really want to go any further. Like we don't have a connection. I'm going to move on. I'll attack that lead at some other point in some other opportunity. But like specifically, my goal for this is saying if a prospect engages with something that is highly related to SuperSend, like, and they're in my ICP and they don't work at a competitor, I want to reach out to them so that when this person gets this serendipitous sort of outreach, they're going, oh man, that's crazy. I was just like thinking about that exact topic like the other day because I saw this guy that I follow post. Like, man, this is like really connecting on an immediate level, right? That's the whole goal here. So we summarized the post here, right? We got a bunch of information, right? And we're going to move on to the next step. Again, to do this relevance score, you can use whatever model you want. I used, Claygen, and then I connected it with my Gemini key, and this is costing me, fractions of a penny, thousandths of a penny. Very inexpensive. All right, so now we've got a bunch of prospects that have crossed they've got, no, they're not a competitor, which is great. We've got a LinkedIn post that they've engaged in that's relevant to us, which is awesome. So now we're moving down the next step, which is so this person's made it this far into my Clay table. Now I want to identify, are they even within our ICP, right? Like, are they somebody we think would be a good user for SuperSend, or like within an organization that can use SuperSend, right? And so I do an ICP check. This is another prompt, very simple. Giving context about SuperSend. Here are all the variables, right? So these are all the columns and cells that I want this prompt to reference within Clay. Giving it a role, right? Evaluation instructions. And again, generate my prompt will get you there on this. This is an easy prompt. And the output, I'm just looking for a yes or no. And as I look at this, I'm getting an output as yes. And here's the reasoning. The country manager role suggests business development responsibilities, and MBlue fits the company size criteria. The role likely has authority to purchase tools. Recommendation, it's giving me a recommendation. It says this person's potentially a good fit for SuperSend. While country manager isn't direct sales and marketing role, it suggests a leadership position within with likely responsibility for business development and revenue generation. So it's like, I gave it a bunch of like guardrails to say like my ICP is very specific to this thing. It's taking those guardrails and like making a really good assessment of, they are or they are not ICP, right? Here's like a no, right? So this is good. This is somebody that made it all the way to the ICP stage. And then it's like, no, it's not. And because, so this person works at a big company. I've never heard of them, Cartech, but basically it said, the role is relevant to marketing. However, the company's size exceeds the ideal range. These guys have like over 1,000 employees. Like, I'm not interested in reaching out to companies that large at the moment, right? So I'm going to say, no, they're not an ICP. Okay. So now, right? So again, I've got another conditional. You see here, because I've got no here, this next column won't run. So if I open this here, I'll come down here at the bottom and then see if the ICP decision is, the ICP decision must equal yes to move on. This equaled no, not going to move on. We're not going to run any other cells for this person. Okay. Long walk through, but it's worth it. There's 2 final prompts. These 2 are the absolute, these are the ones that make that, for me, these are the ones that make this, that tie this all together. Now that we have got a person that we absolutely want to reach out to, we've got a mega prompt here. This one's pretty badass. We're calling it the outreach potential analysis, but it's going to get a bunch of input variables here. the prospect's name, title, company, company size, company industry, engagement type, like did they like or comment on the post? If they commented, what was the comment? Because I want that, I may want to reference that comment in my outreach. Who was the post creator? We use this in a different prompt for another reason, but in this one, again, we want to make sure that we're referencing this is the guy that made the post, this is the guy that engaged. We want the AI to really tell the difference. And then we gave it the original post content. We use this again in another prompt, but again, you want to make sure that you're laser targeted. Every prompt, needs every detail. And let's see. I'm going to open the output because we're getting a lot of signals generating in this prompt. What we're also generating is these 5 building blocks that will be automatically injected into SuperSend for this prospect to then build our actual email outreach. So let's look at the output here. There's a ton in this output. Arguably, this is the prompt this is it. This is tying it all together. So the first thing that it did was it did like a qualification again. I could probably get rid of this prompt here because this one does a really good job, but it is what it is. Tomato, tomato. So this prompt says, hey, pretty sure the company's a good fit. However, their role is maybe not as relevant. Like maybe it's like a, tertiary like role to what we're looking for, but we still want to move forward. We don't know if he's a decision maker. The overall qualification here needs more info. So like maybe we don't have like what I'd consider strong signals to like reach out to this person. And if you look at our next prompt, see how I gave it like, now it's giving it a weak signal. It's because some of these things it looked at is like, like maybe we should reach out to this person, but like it's not as strong as like the next one that we'll look at, right? So if I look at the next response, qualification, company fit, yes. Role relevant, yes. They are a decision maker, yes. Overall qualification qualified. And as I move down here, it's gauging their sense of intent signals in categories like business growth, sales, communication, workflow automation, based on the posts that they're engaging with. Like if they're engaging with a post that's kind of hitting these topics, like clearly these are things that they're thinking about. Like they're engaged in these sort of workflows. What else is it generating for me? It's generating a recommendation. So we should reach out to them immediately. The priority should be high. It's suggesting an outreach approach. So send a personalized email highlighting SuperSend's multi-channel capabilities and how it can improve lead conversion rates. Because remember, this LinkedIn post is about automating outreach to website visitors, right? So we're in that category. And then the last thing that it's generating is 5 building blocks for us to build an email. So it's saying we have the prompt to say like what group does this person? Is it like a founder, sort of C-level exec, or is he like a sales marketing role? Like what role group is he in? My soft prompt, just consider this like a call to action. Would you be open to exploring how SuperSend can help streamline outbound efforts, right? We're having it generate like a relevant goal, because this LinkedIn post, the goal of it was to help people learn how to re-engage website visitors. So like the relevant goal here, like this prospect is reading a post to essentially like improve lead conversion, which would be like people landing on your website. So it's giving us this relevant goal. It's determining like a challenge area, right? So converting website traffic into qualified opportunities. Again, that's the challenge of this post. It's like, how do you do that? It shows you how to do it. And then it gives us like a value alignment. SuperSend helps B2B sales teams coordinate personalized outreach across multiple channels, ensuring leads don't slip through the cracks. So when you separate these sort of building blocks here, they don't really mean anything when you separate them. But when you add these as variables in our email copy with some static copy, they start to make a lot more sense. And you'll see that in our next video where we're actually connecting the dots here and bringing this data into SuperSend. So again, probably lots of questions on this prompt here. So, ping me if you have questions on how to get this set up, or if you're just questioning, the output to make sure you're getting it right. But like, again, and I'm pretty deep here. You don't have to go this deep. You could have had this prompt like simply generate like just these 5 things. So, I'm I'm probably doing a little bit of overkill here. But two final things that we're going to do here. So remember, the goal is of taking a giant list and making it down into a smaller list. And every checkpoint here, every prompt is a checkpoint that a prospect must pass to ultimately be sent into SuperSend for engagement, right? And so if you've made it this far, you right, see some of these prospects, these rows that are empty, these people did not make those checkpoints, so we're not going to reach out to them. The last checkpoint is everybody's going to pass this checkpoint at this point. If you've made it to this here, if you made it here, you're going to get past here. All we're doing here in this prompt is, and you'll see why this is important, is I wanted like a binary, like yes, no. Like from an outreach perspective, if this prospect and all the things that we've learned so far, if I'm getting like very high intent, like we 100% need to connect with this person, like they're checking all the boxes. I want in SuperSend, I'm going to be running a conditional sequence. I want this lead to go down path A, and then I want a prospect that's in the weak category to go down path B, because our sequence is doing two separate things, and I'll show you what that is. But the whole point of this was to give me a binary, like left or right decision point that I can inject into SuperSend. All right, so we've got the outreach strength, and this is it. So 2 more columns. Waterfall to find work email, and then validating the email. These are really simple. This is all built into Clay. If I need to find somebody's email, what we're doing in Clay is they have what's called waterfalls, where it's going to check multiple data providers to find the right answer, which is the email in this case, right? And so again, you come back to add column, add enrichment, or you can go blue button up here, add enrichment, whichever. Bunch of stuff here in the list, but what you're looking for is work email. Try to find, waterfalls. And you've got work email enterprise, you got work email like SMB. It doesn't really matter. These are just lists of providers. Like, so if I look at this, see how like it's going to look at Wizza first, Hunter, go to Lead Magic, find email, whatever. I think the other one's like pretty similar. I'm going to open this up. Okay, they include find email, and the order is different. So like, anyway, either one, it doesn't really matter. I think like if you look at where I'm getting the best, like really good results is like, Lead Magic as my first opportunity. It costs the least amount of credits. So I always like to use Lead Magic first. I've always had awesome results with find email. So like no matter what, that's second. Everything else, cool. Wizza, I'd actually probably move this up over some of these, but again, it doesn't really matter. I don't care who gives me the email. I just want the cheapest provider first and then cycle down to the more expensive providers. So what happens is as a prospect, as I run this row, it's going to then go to this waterfall and say, okay, I'm going to ask Lead Magic if they know who the email is, if they know what it is. And sure enough, they did. And that'll present it in this column here. But you can see, for example, this prospect here went all the way through and we actually couldn't find a work email for him, right? So like we can't reach out to him over email, but I can still reach out to him over LinkedIn because I have the LinkedIn URL, remember? So that's key to remember. We can still use this. I didn't use it in this one, it looks like, so I could always adjust this and cycle back through and put these leads in, but I want to show you very specific email and LinkedIn workflow that we're doing. Last step, so we did this waterfall to find the emails. Last step here is as I use zero bounce to validate emails. What I'm doing, like, there's many providers to validate emails. Like, just pick one that you like. Zero bounce is pretty good. I don't use SuperSend's email validation because I think that these companies that live and die and do email validation as their 100% core product, I think they're probably better at it. I don't have like a ton of data, but I would say that they're better at it. So I like to use zero bounce. And what I'm actually looking for is when I set the zero bounce, these email validators up, this is like really critical. These validators will give you, there's a bunch of them. You can use any of these. But let's say I was setting up zero bounce. It's going to use this column. So again, email address, it's already pulling it. But It shows you, oh, continue to add fields. Wait, no, go back. Oh, right here. Only safe to send emails. It's optional. If I turn this on, all it's doing is saying, because sometimes an email is valid, but it's a catch-all email, meaning like the person doesn't really work there anymore. The email's still active, but nobody's monitoring. Like it's either a spam trap or you just don't want to send to a catch-all. So I always check like, safe to send, because I want an email that is still active and like, it's not forwarding somewhere else. It's not a catch-all. Like, so I'm looking at even, again, big list down to small. I'm like filtering and whittling down just even on the email here. Like some of these are invalid or catch-all. Like I'm not reaching out to this person over email because, even though it might be real, like the risk is that it's a spam trap or it's going to bounce and that's going to hurt your cold outreach deliverability. So it's just like not even worth it. Like where you could go is you could say, hey, I'm not going to reach out via email to this person. I'm only going to reach out to them via LinkedIn. You could do that, or Twitter or whatever. But for me, I'm only doing email, LinkedIn on this, and I want all safe to send emails for this workflow. All right. Don't save changes. Okay. So once I've got valid emails, final column is going to be in the next video because this one's super long. So final column is going to be, how do I get this data from Clay into SuperSend, and then we're going to build a sequence. Okay, we'll see you in the next one.